Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I am here with the one and only Chris Couto. How you doing?
I'm doing well, brother.
Good. Can I pour you a bit of mezcal?
Sure.
Awesome. So, I've been watching you play for at least 6 years, I think. Okay. At least that. And I was trying to, I wish I could compile like a ready stream list of all the different bands that you play with, because you play with so many acts that play everywhere. You just mentioned that you were going to London and Estonia in May, which is super awesome. But you play with Los Duendes, you played with Mazacote, you played with what was it, Colonel Reggae that became Rude Boys.
That's right.
There's so many that I'm missing there.
For sure. Couto,
yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget too, like the amount of groups. There's a lot of side projects as well. But I guess those would be like my main projects. Yeah,
cheers, by the way. And who are you going to Europe with?
Ooh, that's nice. It was Shade Awali.
Right, you told me that outside. Yeah, but it wasn't on camera.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And that's how big of a tour is that?
I want to say it's a week. I want to say, or maybe a little longer. We got some shows in London, like a so far show.
Cool!
At the Fiddler's Elbow.
I only recently got introduced to So Far. It's some really cool stuff that they do.
Definitely, yeah. It's a really cool thing that they do for artists, like more acoustic kind of sets. Then we have a showcase in Tallinn Music Week in Estonia.
It's Estonia. That's
yeah.
It seems weird, but cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've never been there, so
yeah. So, is that percussion for both of those, or drums? Or
drums.
Drums.
Yeah.
Is there what came first?
Percussion. So I started with like Afro-Cuban drumming, Latin percussion, so congas, timbales, bongo. And then like African drumming, like djembe.
Yeah.
And the drum kit, I was self-taught through Couto from playing shows, like a lot of busking.
Just like, oh God, I better learn how to play the drums.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Just all by feel, and just all my like inspirations growing up.
When did you start playing percussion?
When I want to say 12. So my parents put me into this like music program at the Roundhouse, actually. It was just like a 2-week intensive program of like learning all these different types of instruments, taiko drumming, Brazilian drumming, Afro-Cuban drumming, Zimbabwean marimbas. And then from the marimbas, I enjoyed that so much, and the Afro-Cuban percussion, that I wanted to incorporate and do that more. So our Couto before was called Jabulani, and it was 14 of us. So it was a really big group. And it was just mostly marimbas and some shakers and stuff. We got a lot of shows. A woman named Valder, she really helped us kind of boost our career in the beginning. And so we just, we did a lot of playing when we were younger. And then we actually got to do an exchange trip in Cuba. And so when we went to Cuba, so they taught us how to dance and their culture, and we taught them marimbas.
Cool.
Which was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great experience.
When was that?
2002, maybe?
Well, so you must have been a baby.
I think I was like, I want to say I was 15 or 16.
So it must have been a really cool experience.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. And that's where I fell in love with Afro-Cuban percussion, like really fell in love with the culture. And then when I got back, I decided to take more classes, or, Jack Duncan was one of my mentors, as well as Miles Bigelow, but more so for timbales. So that's kind of like how I started doing this music. And then from there, I wanted to take another approach and not just play Cuban music, but, apply those skills to playing funk, hip hop, and, the whole list. And so that's how I started kind of putting myself out there, right? Just playing with different groups, different projects. Because I was just interested.
And different groups you definitely play with. Do you have a number off the top of your head? Could you throw out a number of how many different like groups you
I've
played with in the last 6 months?
in the last 6 months. Probably like 8.
Yeah, because I know the three we mentioned, the four, I think 4 we mentioned right off the bat. But what I love is so often I'll see the bill for a night specifically at Guild.
Yeah.
And I won't know who's playing, and I won't check because sometimes it's more fun not to.
Yeah.
And then when the musicians start rolling out, I'm like, oh, Chris is playing today. Cool. It's like, what's this band? Is this a new band? I don't know. Or you'll like look up a band that's playing. I'm like, I have no idea who this is. And then you'll see the photo of the band. And you're like, yeah, I know who all these players are.
For sure.
Is this a new band or is this
Right.
just, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times it's like either one-offs or I'm just subbing for someone.
Yeah.
I feel like there's not as many Latin percussionists in Vancouver, right? So
Totally.
but that's a very small term. Like being a Latin percussionist doesn't just seclude me to just playing Latin music, right? Like, and that's what I was saying, like kind of changing up the game and like using it in different elements, house or like live house or playing with DJs. And I did that for a long time in the club scene here when I was like 18, 19.
Yeah.
So then, you start making connections, right? Like people see you and they want you for their project and then when I started playing more drum kit, it was kind of the same thing. So having 2 disciplines has kind of allowed me to get a lot more work in that way.
How'd you find the DJ stuff? I saw this awesome DJ and percussionist just playing the congos in Tulum on this rooftop bar in Tulum.
Yes.
And it was so cool, and it was just like the guy played because like the DJ was taking more breaks than the percussionist. He must have played for 4 hours straight, just nonstop.
Yeah,
it was really neat.
that's cool. Yeah. I'm pretty used to playing for many hours nonstop.
Yeah,
but having breaks in between.
How are your calluses?
You know what? I have the really soft hands.
Really?
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. They used to be pretty bad, but they're not that bad.
Were you always drawn to percussion and drumming?
I was, yeah. Like I started playing piano and more like montunos and stuff like that. Because my inspiration comes from my dad. He was a guitarist. He grew up in Mozambique. So he already had a lot of experience playing and touring in Brazil and kind of around the world, and he wanted me to be musical in some kind of way, and so it started with the piano, so he could kind of do montunos on the guitar, and that's how we would kind of collaborate. But not so much when I started drumming. I didn't really collaborate with him in any way.
Right.
It just kind of came later on. And yeah, actually, when he passed away, I'm actually releasing a song on my birthday on the 29th. And
Of this month?
Of this month, yeah. And it's it's like a.
This is April, by the way. I don't know when this episode's going to air.
Yeah, yeah, it's all good. And it's basically like a tribute song for him.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's I had a dream for a week, the same dream, and he was teaching me guitar. He actually tried to teach me guitar when I was really young, and I'm really stubborn just in nature, and wish I had taken the liberty to learn it, but I didn't. So, I would pick up his guitar every morning, like 5 a.m., and try to like learn what he was teaching me. But I thought it was pretty
In the dream.
profound. In the dream. Yeah. So like
Cool.
I would dream this, I would hear like the song, and then I would wake up and then pick up his guitar.
So cool because it's just buried somewhere in your self-conscious, those memories of him
Totally.
teaching you to play guitar.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic I actually had time to do nothing and spend time on my own creations, because I do a lot of writing for like Mazacote or a lot of arranging, right? Couto. I love to write music, but never for myself, like I never get the time to kind of sit down with my own music and do what I want to do. It's always for other people. which I love. You know,
Yeah.
I love. That's just who I am, right? Like, I'm such a giver, but you know, sometimes I need to receive and take care of what I want to be doing as well.
And is that uh, single being released under Chris Couto?
Yeah, actually under Couto.
Couto.
Yeah,
Just Couto.
so, just Couto.
Um,
Yeah,
do you still play piano at all?
a little bit.
Yeah. Do you use
little
it when you're composing, or
Yeah,
is that kind of like a place to start? Where do you start?
I'll generally.
I guess my question is I don't. It's great. It's really cool for me to talk to drummers who are also composers.
Yeah.
Because what does the writing process look like for percussionists in terms of composition?
Mm-hmm.
How does that differ from someone who like starts with a piano or starts with a guitar or starts with a vocal lick, or do you do that as well?
It kind of changes, but generally, like, a melody will come into play, or I'll sing a rhythm in my head or record it, and then I'll go on the computer and I'll either start with the drums, or I'll just start with the piano and just kind of have the melody, and I'll just start building from there. When it comes to rhythms, there's like, I have a vast knowledge of so many different styles and genres, and what kind of works together, what mixes together. So it's how my brain works. Sometimes it's hard to explain, like the way I create something. Sometimes it'll happen super quick. Sometimes it takes it'll take like a week to figure out a simple idea. But most of the time it comes naturally.
When you compose, do you feel like it comes first from a technical place or an emotional place?
Emotional place.
Yeah.
Always an emotional place. The technical comes like at the very end, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's generally because I don't play really bass or guitar.
Right.
So I do everything on MIDI on the keyboard.
Yep.
So I'll take the whole idea and then I'll generally send it to a band, or I'll just get session musicians to jump on and try to play what my vision is.
Right.
With a little bit of their creativity as well, because for that live, feeling, right? I want their expression as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. The recording of this single, what does this single have a name yet?
Yeah, it's Baducha.
Baducha?
Yeah, which was my dad's stage name.
Oh, super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of people knew.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, brother. Thank you.
And is that the first of lots to come?
This will actually be my third release.
Yeah.
I have two other releases already. One's called Bailadora, which features Toto Beriel, who's he's a Cuban singer and phenomenal percussionist as well.
That's all released under Couto?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I like under my Spotify or whatever streaming platforms are out there. And the other one was called Bang, meaning come. And that featured a singer called El Sig, and with DJ Chemo, who's a producer and extraordinaire from the Rascals.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was a really great collaboration. to do with them.
Is that something that you actively strive for in like collaboration specifically in creation of
Yeah.
music?
I
Because
do
I know
like
that it happens we've talked about all the different artists and all the different groups that you play with.
Mhm.
So it kind of happens by default.
Mhm.
But is that something do you find that something being very freeing? Like I remember being in high school, everyone was in a band in high school. Everyone wants to be in a band in high school.
Mhm.
And everyone was like, what am I going to figure out how to play? Right. And I picked bass
Yes.
because it was the easiest to get into a band if you were a bassist or a drummer.
Mhm.
And I couldn't keep a beat with my feet and my hands at the same time. So it's like, okay, bass guitar it is. But do you find that as a musician, do you find that overwhelming or freeing or both?
Yeah, a little bit of both. It's definitely freeing in the sense of I can just, I don't force anything. I'm a really
Yeah.
big believer of time, right? So if it's not meant to be in this time, then it'll happen down the line. But yeah, how things kind of just come to me. I just always trust my gut in that time and just go with the flow, right? Like,
Yeah.
so if I'm overthinking about something and it doesn't feel complete, then I won't pursue it, right? Like I'll just give it some space. Is that kind of what you were asking me?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something that's so beautiful about music doesn't exist without rhythm, right? I mean, I guess no, it doesn't. It can't. Even if it's you even look at like something as different from what we're talking about as like classical music, right? Where it's like string. It's not very. You don't imagine percussion, right? It's not the first thing you think of when you think of Chopin, right, or Mozart. But it's so rhythm is such an intrinsic part of everything that is music that it's such a neat thing to see. Like what I really love about a lot of the different acts that I've seen you play with, which I'm kind of all over the map here.
That's all good.
This is my fourth mezcal today. Is when worlds collide.
Yeah.
So when you see mixes from Afro-Cuban to Latin America to more traditional Americana, when where those all intersect and meet musically, and when music doesn't have limitations and it knows no bounds and it's just allowed to be what it is, it's something that's really cool. And I feel like I've definitely seen a lot of that from you as a musician.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. That's something I love to do, is fuse different genres together, right? Like because of all the different mixes, like some things don't work, but a lot of it does. And it's like, how do you like bridge a gap, right? Like how do you bridge taking like Americana and then infusing that with like R&B or,
Right.
like take which are not too far off if you really think about it, right? Like,
especially if you think about their origins.
exactly, right? Totally.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like music is such a broad spectrum, but to feel into it or to portray a certain emotion is what is captivating, right? Because you can, I definitely take pride in what I do, only because it's like I feel like it's slightly different from a lot of what music is and how people are putting it out there, So, that's why I like, kind of like with Salsa Hall Collective, for example, taking like salsa but with dancehall, and those two worlds, they fit beautifully, right?
Yeah.
Or like reggae and dancehall, or reggae and salsa, like you can mix and match so many different genres together, right? Yeah, and the collaborations are always so beautiful because the ones that get it, right? It goes. You don't have to even speak about it too much. It just kind of happens.
It just It just kind of like blends together, melts together.
Exactly.
Yeah. As a player, do you bring? I asked you about where you start from in terms of writing, composition. Do you bring that same, like once something is learned by rote, when you're approaching it from a performance standpoint or a recording standpoint, do you bring that same intention into playing? Is it still, does it ever come to a point where you're just like, banging out the meter, or are you still bringing that emotional intention with you in your performances?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think at first, if I'm too much in my head, it won't feel authentic because then I'm just like rushing to get something out there. So I don't generally work that way. Like everything I always do is emotion based, right?
Yeah.
Emotion based first. Like technicality, that doesn't matter too much to me. I'm more of a pocket player, especially on drums. Like I'm not about flashing or doing too much of that, but just playing in between of what is not already there, right?
Cool.
As a percussionist, especially, to give that freedom of not being too busy, right? That saying, like simple, like playing, like what is that saying? Simple is better. No, that's not it.
Sure. Simple is better.
Yeah, there's a saying for it, but
simplest is bestest.
I like that. I like that. But yeah, I find I get a lot of joy from playing what's not there, but like keeping the space. So if I'm composing anything, I have that intention in mind.
Yeah.
But it's not always what's the case, because I'll always compose. I'll have my keys, I'll have my bass, guitar, like, and then a bunch of synth tracks, or it depends on the mood that I'm going for. I find I've been creating a lot more of a genre called kizomba, which is a rhythm from Angola, which is close to Mozambique. And when I was in Mozambique, I was very enthralled in all of these different styles of music. And I love to learn all of these different types so that I can incorporate it into my own sound, right? So I'll always incorporate some kind of African element, just because that's who I am. That's how I was raised. That's I feel really called to those roots, but I'll add always another element that is kind of on the bound, like on the border of like, okay, it's not going to be too good, because it's kind of clashing, right?
Yeah.
So I just try to fill into the gaps of what can be tolerated, what can be used and listened to without feeling like there's too much going on. Yeah. So any guitar parts, or it's always the hardest to do guitar on a keyboard because it's not authentic at all, right? I mean, everything MIDI doesn't really come across authentic, right? So that's why I'll generally get players to come in to
I want to circle back around into one of the points you were making about playing other parts in between and filling the space, or I think you might have even said the word rest, but I don't know. Maybe that was just my brain.
Rest?
Yeah. But I guess my question, one of the things I love, like, I think that we forget how important the spaces in between are, or we don't forget. Most people don't know. I think most people who don't, aren't musicians or don't study music, aren't exposed to like music all the time. But the way that I can most simplistically put it down is like waiting for the drop.
Yeah.
Like whether or not that's the bass or that's the drum, but like we've all got those songs where there's just that point in the song where that fill comes in, where that instrument comes in, and it's that space before it comes in that sometimes makes it so fucking delicious.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like I feel like that emotional connection so often comes from percussion or drums.
Right.
Because it's that sound that comes in that adds the body, that adds the ambiance, that adds the character, that adds the rhythm, that adds everything, gives it that whole the whole makes it that whole package.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. It's the way it's the way it's placed, right? Like, there's so many amazing bands out there that do this, right? And like it's like feeling these inspirations from these bands, right? Like Snarky Puppy, for example, right? Like just incredible. Ghost Note, like they just musicality wise, they get it, right? So, when you're trying to apply these things to your own music, that's why space is so important for those pockets, because something so small can affect the whole song, right? The whole project. But it is hard to do all the time. It's not like, I feel like it's something that it either comes on strong if you're rehearsing with a band and you're trying to figure out an arrangement, and that's when too many cooks could be in the kitchen, so
Totally.
When it comes to just, that's why the drummer generally has a hold or has like a lead in how to create something beautiful, right? To create a drop or with the percussionist, if there is one, right? And that's why I really love like Coco Jaffro, for example. Because there's so much leeway to play within this, like the Afro beats and the funk, and there's so many little pockets of things you can do. But sometimes I get too like over judgmental, I guess you could say, like too many things are in my mind. So then if I overthink it too much, then nothing.
Well, it's hard not to
lands.
have a million things in your mind when you play in like 9 and 14 piece bands all the time.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's fair.
Do you approach your craft as a percussionist / drummer differently when, like, you talk about the drummer being the driving, the driver,
Yeah.
basically. And I think anybody that's ever played in bands or they'll say the same thing. The drummer's like they drives the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need that.
Yeah.
What's the different approach when you're approaching a show as the drummer and you're the sole percussionist, or when you're coming in as a percussionist and you're playing with 2, sometimes 3, sometimes even 4 different percussion players?
Mm-hmm.
How does that change how you approach the act?
It alleviates me from doing all the things.
All the things.
Yeah. So if I'm the only percussionist, but they're like, oh, we want like, with the timbales and congas sound. So like,
Right.
I'll take that and be like, all right, well, maybe I can play both instruments together.
Yeah, we want you to teach us to fly and swim at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Most cases though, I like the challenge, right? Like, and I love to take risks.
Yeah.
It's not always a good thing, when you're performing live, but I feel like that's just how I've grown to be. Like, that's the same idea as learning drums, right? Like, I would always take risks. I would try to feel that I would never done before, but I would take the risks to see if I can land it. But, if I didn't land it, put a big smile on my face, move on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, water the bridge.
Yeah. But when you're playing with different percussionists, what I mean by it alleviates, I can just focus on the one task, the one rhythm, and then the other people can do like what they're doing, right? So it's a lot like salsa music, right? Like Mazacote, for example. I play basically drum kit and timbales. So I'm doing, not just the timbales on its own, but I'm incorporating now snare, kick drum. So all my limbs are always moving, right? So if I can just alleviate the 1 or 2, it's going to help a lot. And it's going to make the sound a lot more richer. The more people you have, the more percussionists you have, it alleviates you doing everything on your own. But not to say that it's not fun. It just makes it more full. But I've been trying to figure out how to, kind of do everything. How do we alleviate more players? And if I can do it all, having like all the different sounds, the congas.
Just have this like insane kit.
Yeah, basically. It's like one man show of percussion.
Do you ever have to super quickly switch from like sticks to hands?
Sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes I'll.
Is that a fun challenge or is that a nightmare?
It could be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Do you drop a stick and you don't then you're like, oh, like everything's timing, right? Like, but I've noticed in my playing, like I'm so confident. Confidence is a big thing too. If you don't, if you're not confident in what you're doing, it's gonna show, and you're gonna get lost, right? Even if you mess up or you fuck up or whatever, like, and you put a smile on your face or you act like nothing wrong happened, like then it's seamless. You know what I mean? Like no one's gonna know, right? But it is challenging to try to do multiple tasks when you can't when you don't really have the accessibility to make everything sound exactly like it is.
Yeah.
Like any produced track, I always try to like copy or try to play the exact rhythms that someone's bringing to me, right? And if I can, then I will within one sitting. But a lot of times it will be spread up or split up. So if I'm doing the conga with one hand, cajon, if I have a kick for the cajon, but I've been doing these ceremonies for the past couple of years where I'm playing like cajon, djembe, bongos, and like I'll have a shaker in my hand.
Yeah.
So I'm doing like so many things.
What kind of ceremonies?
These are like more like spiritual ceremonies. So I've been doing like
It's a loud bottle.
Huh?
May I?
Yeah, please. So like kind of like mushroom trips.
Yeah, like
and these-
facilitated trips, stuff like
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Any like I won't ask you to divulge on air anything that you want to say.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a slippery slope there.
Yeah.
but,
What kind of ceremonies? Shut the fuck up, Brandon.
Yeah. Let's just say they're mushroom ceremonies, right? So
Cool.
generally I'll be taking this medicine as well. I'll be taking the mushrooms, and for me to play on mushrooms is the hardest thing to do because
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
visually it's very stimulating, but to facilitate and to like not perform, I don't really think that's performing. I'm just collaborating. But for some reason my mind's telling me you can do it all. You can play all of these instruments at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and at first, if I doubt myself, I won't be able to do it. Like I'll try, but I'm already in doubt, right? So when I'm listening to my gut, when I'm listening and just being confident, then like a whole nother world opens up because I'll kind of sing the rhythm in my head of what I'm doing, right? I'll sing that in my head. I'm like, can I do it? Like, so then I'll be like, then I'll try doing it, and sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't, right? But that's the growth, right? That's how I keep pushing myself. That's how I'm always learning. Like I don't judge people. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't judge myself for what I'm capable or not capable of doing. Right. And whoever I'm with,
that changes every day anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So with other people who I'm playing with, to have that trust.
Yeah.
To just explore and, it's I just feel it's so important, right? To allow yourself to go to places that feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're playing it safe, yeah, you could do that, but
And what's the fun of that?
but that's just it, right?
Yeah.
What's the fun of that?
You talk about confidence, and most people think, when they think about that ideology, it's the having you project that confidence, and when you first started talking about the first thing, the first image that I thought of was like, you can hide your flubs if you're confident, right?
Yeah.
And it's true. It's totally true. You can do that, and if in any scenario, if you're steamrolling ahead with whatever it is you're doing, and you make a small mistake and no one notices it, you could probably keep going, and a lot of the time people will go it. But the other side of that is what I think the much deeper side of that you just touched on as well, is that when you internalize that confidence, it gives you the ability to grow and to take risks and to believe in yourself and to take the next step, which is something that mushrooms are really good at.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, having both sides of that coin, as a performer, as an artist, as a composer, whatever, all the things, I think it's super crucial and neat to be able to like pull from both sides, being like, my confidence is allowing me to do this, but my confidence is also allowing me to forgive myself for my mistakes. And that's not ego. That's right. Like, it's different than pride, which is something else entirely. It's an acknowledge of self, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. That's how I try to be anyways,
Yeah, I mean, we all try and we all fail, and we hold ourselves to a standard that, so is there anything that you don't see yourself playing style-wise?
Style-wise?
Yeah.
Like certain instruments, you mean? Or?
No, I mean musically, but like, I won't touch that.
Heavy metal.
Yep.
Like the technicality of it, like it's pretty surreal. It just takes a lot of like dedication.
Totally. Yeah. When you see really good metal drummers, you're like, what fucking planet are you from?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I just saw Exodus, Anthrax, and Black Label Society, and I've just been like, what are these guys even doing? This is just weird.
Yeah. Like I love like polyrhythms and like, different time
Yeah.
signatures. I love messing with times for sure, but not to a degree where it's like every 4 bars it's changing, you know, like to something else, unless there's like some kind of groove to follow with that.
Right.
Right. But then it's just time, you know, like the older I get, the less time I have to like really practice, or if I'm trying to get better at anything, you know,
Right.
because I'm like, I've kind of put myself in different instruments. I'm trying all these new things. I feel like I don't have time to really dedicate to one certain thing
Right.
over a period of time. Right. So I think like my next step, kind of as I try to figure out my like solo show of what that looks like, I'd almost want to start learning how to DJ, you know, but I feel like that's like a later task, you know,
Yeah.
just because it's like I'm still like so in love with what I'm doing that I don't want to start bringing in any other thing,
Yeah.
you know, until like I feel really good.
You mentioned DJs before, because you mentioned that you played with DJs when you were younger.
Yeah.
Like early 20s, doing DJ
Yeah,
gigs.
like 19, 20.
Was that
21 maybe.
vinyls, computers? How did that?
Yeah, it was vinyls.
Vinyls. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always love talking to people that actually remember when DJs used vinyls.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
well, that was the best time though.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously it's like it's a lot of work and like, you know.
oh yeah, yeah. And you go like it's you didn't have the benefit like in terms of like gigging wise.
Yeah.
You know, when you a DJ 20 years ago, you had to bring as much gear to the show as the drummer.
100%. Exactly.
Now you show up with a laptop and hope they have something to patch into.
Exactly.
And you're good.
Exactly.
And not to be little DJs, because it's an art form that is
It is,
beyond
yeah.
me, and I really respect it and appreciate it.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
it's definitely changed, and it's I think it's a different kind of art.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people who have transitioned. A lot of DJs that did all vinyls back in the day, and they've moved over to digital. Still make amazing mixes.
Oh yeah.
Still super great.
Absolutely.
But I know a lot that didn't. They were like, nah, not for me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of younger DJs who couldn't do a vinyl set at all. So it's neat the way that those transitions are made.
Yeah.
The only thing I can relate it to is like, and you can't even do like acoustic electric guitars, because you can still kind of play both those, even if you can't really play both those. But so DJ's the next step down the line.
Down the line.
You have to get up at Bass Coast then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like in my mind, in terms of music, like I have so much music that I would already know what to do with, especially with
Right.
transitions. Like I feel like I could get that down pretty fast. But it's just a matter of spending the time to do it. Like I feel like I want to like, take myself to like a residency deep in the bush somewhere and just have nothing to do but just like,
Yeah.
like no internet, no everything, just dedicate time to learning how to piece that together, There's
You just got to
so
bring
many
up the
distractions.
catalog before then, because if you're going up without internet, you might be frustrated halfway through.
Yeah, that's
I really
true.
want this.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So it's just it's things that I'm just kind of foreseeing as the next step.
Yeah.
I like it was funny because Carnival de Sol that happens in the summer.
Yeah.
Malcolm was asking me, he's like, "Oh, do you want to do like a headline spot?" I'm like, "With what? Like with like a band?" He's like, "No, like your solo material." I'm like, "Man,
Is he running Carnival del Sol again?
no, I don't think he is. I
Yeah.
think he's stepped back." But he was just asking me if I wanted to do a show, and I'm like, I haven't even thought about that.
I haven't seen that guy in like 4 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I might have run into him, but it was like pre-pandemic that he
Really?
was. Pre-pandemic, he was there all the time at Guilt and Co.
Yeah.
And then he kind of stepped back from, and I.
Well, he's a dad now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which so many are, right? It's like,
It's true. Yeah.
so why haven't I seen you for forever? I have 3 kids, asshole.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Cheers to Malcolm being a dad. But you still see him pretty regularly because you guys still play together in
Mazacote.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot going on actually for the summer. A lot of different jazz fests.
Yeah, you're doing a festival in July, I think I saw with Mazacote, right?
Yep. Which one? To be honest, I have no idea.
Right.
But yeah. But yeah, we got like Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, jazz fests, and
when's Mazacote coming back to Guild?
That's a great question. Hopefully soon.
Paul Clark. When's Mazacote coming back to Guild?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I should talk to him about that. Make that a thing for sure.
Yeah, and you were there. You were at Guild recently with
with Frankie.
With Frankie, that was on Sunday, right? You were there with
That's right.
Yeah, you guys play a lot together, right?
Yeah, me, Frankie,
because he's in
Mazacote as well.
Mazacote, yeah.
But yeah, he's been trying to do his own kind of like R&B, salsa, kind of thing, you know. And
I remember, I totally just remembered when we had that like pop-up party for Trevor.
Yeah.
Trevor Twos.
Yeah.
And I was just so annoyed that everyone was drinking my beer.
That's right.
And I go over to the cooler and I was a total dick to Frankie, and you're like, no, I told him you could have one. I was like, oh, you're friends with Chris? Okay, cool. And then as soon as I talked to him for 2 minutes, I'm like, I know who you are.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I am very gracious, like grateful of the fact that I know a lot of people who have forgiven their first impression of me. Because I'm just like, I've been programmed to just be in dick mode for things that I shouldn't be.
Right.
That often I'm a bit too abrasive with people who are very, very quite lovely, and they usually forgive me after the fact for it. And for that, thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, Frankie. I'm sorry I was a dick to you.
No, it's all love at the end of the day. You know, that's
yeah.
But that's just how it is, right? It's like if you don't know someone personally, then it's I can understand that for sure. Yeah. So lots in the books for the
lots
summer.
Lots in the books.
Yeah, lots happening. The one thing I hate the most is scheduling. Is like the only thing about being thinned out with like multiple groups is that it's so easy to overbook.
Oh yeah.
If you're not on top of it like right away, and I've gotten actually a lot better this year. I say this every year, like I've gotten a lot better, but there's always something that comes up, and it's like
I'm the like if I don't have everything in the same location, like I couldn't survive without. Well, I mean, if I probably could, it would just be like a hard calendar.
Yeah.
Because we all did survive before the internet.
This is true.
But I will send like everything that I book. Mm-hmm. Which then the problem with this is you just get inundated with the notifications and the reminders, so you start ignoring them.
That's right.
But I have to have like okay, I've booked this thing for this day, this interview this time, work this day, this phone call this time, this meeting this time.
Yeah.
And they all have like 1 day reminder, 2 days reminder, 3 hour reminder, 2 hour reminders. So my phone is constantly going off, being like, oh yeah, I got to do that in 3 days. Oh yeah, I got to do that in 2 days.
Yeah.
So this scheduling nightmare I can relate to.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Yeah. It does feel good when you're on top of it though.
It does.
Because when it's like, okay, I'm doing stuff, and it's not just like your 9 to 5, but it's like I got a lot going on.
Yeah.
But it's all stuff that I chose to do with people that are, that are cool, that I want to be doing things with. So when I don't let it bog me down, I find that it when I'm on top of it, it actually makes me feel good. It's like, okay, I'm 100%. Doing something with my fucking life.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. 100%.
I'm not just wasting away.
No, that's right. Because that's just it. Because if I decide to like not answer to an email or a message and I'll let that go for 2 days, then I'm just playing catch up.
Yeah.
And then it sucks because I know how it is, like when you're wanting to receive a quick response, when you're managing like a group of 6 or 7 people, it's a lot to manage like different people's times and schedules for rehearsals, whatever it is for shows. If you don't get a response when you need it, like then you're just waiting on people. Right. And and I get it. It's like everyone has their lives, right? Like everyone's doing things at different times. I always try to like respond as quick as I can, just to stay on top of it,
Yeah.
right? Just so I can get ahead. Because if like a day goes by and I just decide I need a day for myself and like don't talk to me, like even if I ask that, like there's always things coming in. So right, like it's the hustle is I've been hustling since I was like 15,
Yeah.
like straight up, just like constantly trying to book, trying to make a living off of music, which is so hard to do,
Yeah.
and in this city too, like, and it's that alone has been my struggle with music. My dad always pushed me to like, yo, go to school, get a real job,
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like, you did music your whole life.
I don't want a real job.
I'm like, I don't want a real job. And I've done it. I've done many, many jobs, I've done a lot of construction in the past, but like what it doesn't fuel me, it's like, even if I don't make, a lot of money, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I don't need a lot to be, to, you know what I mean? To feel free and, as long as I can have a roof over my head, I can sustain myself, I'm happy. I'm good.
Yeah.
But it is a lot,
Yeah.
So to find that balance.
And that combination of hustle and joy, it's like I've talked to so many artists who talk about the balance between doing what they love and doing their job when their job is doing what they love.
Yeah.
I remember when my younger brother, who's a really talented guitar player, for the longest time, I was trying to get him to move to Vancouver and be a session musician. I was like, you could be like recording, like you're good enough that people would just be like, hey, can you come and record this? Can you come and do this? Can you come and do this? And then like you'd get into the community and you'd be playing nonstop. Like you're that good. And I was younger at the time. I was probably in my 20s, and he's 6 years younger than me.
Okay.
But when he was 13 or 14 years old, he picked up this little guitar, and his parents, he said, I want an electric guitar. And we had like the one at the house that he picked up was like a kid's nylon, probably about 3 feet long, like one of those little kids' guitars. I was like, I want an electric guitar. I want to play guitar. Guitar is cool. And my parents were basically like, well, prove it. Like, we're not just going to buy you an electric guitar. Prove it.
Right.
So he learned on that little guitar. He learned like, he went online and got all the heavy metal, classic rock, butt rock guitar solos. And learned doing AC/DC riffs on this little classical guitar. And within 3 weeks, maybe to be nice to me, maybe we'll say 3 months. This kid was better than I'll ever be. And at the time I was playing a lot. But I never was a really good lead. I was a half decent rhythm guitarist, semi-decent bass player, really just trying to make it work in bands.
Right.
And he right away just was amazing. Really fucking just took to it. And the combination of his they say talent is 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration. And he did put in the hours when he was young, and he was so good. And I remember being like, I wanted him to come out because I wanted to do what he could do. I was like, you need to do it because I lack the capability or the stubbornness to put in the man hours that you do. But I want to do it. Yeah. So it was so dumbfounded to me. I couldn't understand that he never wanted to like make that leap. And he still plays, he's got guitars on the wall, but he plays for him. He's got 2 kids. He's an auto body mechanic, really talented at that too. And I remember talking to him about it before all that happened. And he was just like, nah, I don't want it to be my job. And it's like that balance, right? That work-life balance of do you like to put a question to it? Do you ever feel like when it feels most like it's work, do you ever feel like do you ever worry or risk losing the joy when it becomes work?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. If there's any time where I'm feeling like overworked, like if I'm, how do I phrase it? Like if I'm working, but I have to like play like 10 gigs to make rent or something like that,
Yeah.
you know, or if I'm just putting too much energy into too many things, that's where I feel like I lose my joy. But I've only ever had that a few times where I was like, like, why am I doing music? Like I feel like I have to do so much just to get just like a little bit of income. But that was my old mentality. Think of it this way. This is Chris whoring himself out to multiple groups for little money, for not knowing my worth as a musician. Right. And I didn't know that for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. So until I, snapped out of it and started working with projects that actually fueled me, people who I actually wanted to connect with, you know. But yeah, I guess winter was always was my most depressive state. You know, January to like around this time, I'd say like March. I would always be in a very depressed state because there would be little work, but that's not that's no one's fault. That's only my fault because I wasn't applying myself, right? Like I thought I was hustling so much that I didn't have the means to make ends meet because like, oh, I'm doing so much. Why am I not able to sustain this? But at the end of the day, I look back to my younger self and I'm like, yeah, you were looking at all the negatives to every situation, right? You weren't looking at the positives of what you were doing and how to sustain yourself. So there was a moment of like grief for for something that was like nothing. It was like I was being in the shit for no reason almost. I was like sad because I wasn't being used. Sounds like I'm a whore or some shit, but like in the sense of like I just wasn't positive in the way of how I was using my time and where I was putting my energy. So I don't know when that changed or what snapped for me. And doing these ceremonies, I think that was a part of it. It really helped me realize a lot about myself. And so that definitely helped. And that started during the pandemic. So that definitely helped to like kind of condition me to be someone different, to show up for myself and to feel like I'm worth it, I am. So when it comes to dreams and aspirations, like I just want to say, like, does your brother still play? Does he?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, he doesn't pick up the guitar as often as he'd probably still like to.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
I was gonna say, like you don't want to play bass anymore, or like you don't feel like.
Well, I mean, I stopped playing bass. Have you seen the house bass at Guilt & Co? It's been used a couple times recently in the last little while. Someone had a malfunction.
House bass, like where's that stored? Like where do you put
it? Right now. It's in the green room, leaning against one of the couches. It was in the sound cage for the longest time. That's my bass.
Really?
Yeah. I don't have an amp.
Okay.
And I don't have any way to plug it into. I don't have the board that you can use to plug it into a computer and listen to headphones.
And you're not taking it seriously.
Sorry?
Because you don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it became a lot harder to the type of playing that I would want to do at home would just be for me, right?
Of course.
And having a bass amp in an apartment building is a lot harder than just pulling your acoustic off the wall. So I put it there, and I also kind of put it there because I'll admit a part of me putting it there was a part of me being like half sad and half disappointed with myself for not continuing to pursue it. But I switched sort of from bass to singer-songwriter acoustic stuff in my late 20s because I couldn't find a band. And I was just like, well, I'll just maybe try to write my own stuff. Turns out I wasn't that good. But I still do, like, I came in here the other day. There's a guitar sitting right over there that belongs to Lorena, one of our other hosts for the show. And I saw it sitting there and I was like, oh, cool, the guitar. And I picked it up and I noodled for a little bit. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is really fun. I enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my brother still does play. You know, he's a really good slide guitarist. So he'll, whenever he comes over to my place, he changes all the tunings to my guitars. And I can't change the back because I'm not as talented as he is. I'm like, why are they all in open tuning? God damn you, you asshole. But yeah, it's that balance, right?
Yeah. It's that balance. Exactly. Right. It's finding when is the right time to do that, right? Like to pick it up again. You know, it's interesting because I have a bass I have an electric bass on like hanging on my wall in my studio at home. And for the past, I got it like 2 years ago. And, you know, it was gifted to me. And, you know, because I told myself like, yeah, I'm going to learn bass this year. That's like where I want to put my energy. And it's still something I want to do. But, you know, I pick it up a few times and like, you know, I tried to like learn the basis of it.
Yeah.
And everyone always tells me, oh, dude, you're going to pick this up so quick, you know. But I'm a field musician, you know, like I don't read notes necessarily. I could read a chart, but like I don't enjoy doing that. It's like I just rather listen to a song, any gig I'm going to, and if I don't know something on the way to the gig, that's when I'll learn the song, make like 2 notes, and then do the gig, you know.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it'd be like, "Oh, that's crazy that you could do that." It's like, well, it's like I would prefer to write down the chart, you know, if I could, as opposed to just listening to everything. But over the years, that's just how I function, right? So if I take certain gigs, if someone's like, "Oh, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be saying this," I don't know who's gonna be like hearing this or anything, right? But I'll say it because it's whatever. When someone's like, "Oh, like you could read charts," I'm like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, I could read anything, right?" And like, cool, like we'll send you the music, and then like, you know. But when they send me the music, that's all I need is just the music. If I could hear the song, but then it's, you know, you show up to a rehearsal and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna try a new song. Here's the chart." It's like, oh
fuck.
shit.
Like,
Okay. But I can see the notes. I went to school for it. This is funny too. I went 4 years. I went to VCC.
Yeah.
And they call me alumni, but I never graduated because at that time I failed theory twice. I couldn't figure out. I went to school to learn.
You.
Yeah, it is beneath me. Like I don't need it, but I went to school to learn how to read music.
Yeah,
because everything was by ear for me. Because marimbas, there was no music, right? It was just you playing by ear. And drumming too, same idea. So I never took the liberty to appreciate how to learn how to read music. But I got the basics down. And I was touring so much with Couto at that time that I didn't really take school that seriously. And I would find myself in the modules where they have like drums, piano, and learning the circle of fifths really helped me to like figure out the notes and everything. But I would waste all my time just like writing music, right? Like just writing tunes. I'm like, oh, like this chord goes with that. And then, you know, so I didn't really take it too seriously. But what I learned from it was like, you don't need to have a full degree to understand how to play music, right? Because you can take whatever notes and you could kind of mess with it. It really depends on where you want to go. If you go to school and you want to teach at universities and stuff like that, then yeah, get a degree so you can go do that. But if you're just trying to learn, just take some classes. You don't necessarily need a degree to work at schools.
Yeah.
You know, I've been teaching at, you know, elementary schools, high schools, teaching marimba without any degree, just street smarts, right?
Do you enjoy teaching?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. I had to step away for a little bit because it took a lot of energy. Because I worked a lot at the lower, like downtown east side,
Yeah.
working with a lot of troubled youth at Britannia as well. And, you know, I can relate to these kids, right? Because a lot of how I grew up in that time, there was a lot of gangs and shit in that time. And I was like involved in it. Not that I was a gang member or anything like that, but,
Yeah.
you know, for some reason I was just around when things were happening. So I can understand, I can get onto a level where a diploma can't or a degree can't teach that, you know? So just being real and being yourself can take you further than having a degree trying to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know, so I never took that for granted, and it's not necessarily something I wanted. But to be able to just kind of be free in how I've learned how to read music has you know, has been rewarding at the same time. You know, like, again, with that confidence of
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll figure this out. Even when I don't believe in myself, when I look at a chart and I hit the shots and I'm just like, oh shit, like, okay, I do. I can
Yeah.
read this, you know?
Yeah.
So
So is there anyone that you don't want me to tell that you can read charts to?
no,
Can I pour you a little one to do a final
please.
cheers here?
Absolutely.
I want to do a final plug just to cap up
Yeah.
for your single coming out
Yeah.
on April 29th. So when this airs, it will be available.
Yes.
I think, right? Probably. It's halfway through the month now.
Mm.
Name of the single again?
Baducha.
And it's Couto on Spotify, Apple
Yeah.
Music, all the places you can
Yeah. That's right.
find music. You can check out if you want to go on a loop in the internet. You can look up Los Duendes. You can look up Mazacote. You can look up Couto.
Yeah.
You can look up
Calico. You can look up. I actually have all this on my website.
on your
as
website,
well.
which is
chriscouto.ca.
chriscouto.ca.
Yeah.
And I look forward to all of those things
Thanks for that.
and many more of these.
Thank
Thanks
you,
so
brother.
much for being here.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.